Veltar Chin sat in the witness chair, his forearms folded across his chest. The courtroom was filled with representatives from dozens of alien species. They all wanted to hear his story about the humans. His mandibles clicked nervously as he looked at the judges. "I was a commander in the Kethmoran hegemony fleet," Veltar began. His voice was steady but quiet. "We discovered Earth 20 years ago. Our scouts told us it was inhabited by primitive creatures called humans." The alien judges leaned forward. Everyone knew about the human war, but few knew the real story. Veltar had been there from the beginning. He had seen it all. "The scouts showed us images of their world," Veltar continued. "The humans used crude rockets to reach space. Their ships were made of metal and burned chemical fuel. They had no energy shields, no plasma weapons. Their most powerful bombs were simple nuclear devices." Veltar's memories went back to that day in the command center. Admiral Zethka had laughed when she saw the human ships. They looked like flying scrap metal compared to Kethmoran vessels. The hegemony ships were sleek and powerful. They could travel faster than light. They had shields that could stop any weapon. Their plasma cannons could destroy a city in seconds. "We thought they were barely out of their Stone Age," Veltar said. "Our technology was thousands of years ahead of theirs. We had conquered hundreds of worlds. Most species surrendered when they saw our ships. The few that fought back were defeated quickly." The human planet was beautiful. Blue oceans covered most of its surface. White clouds swirled around green and brown continents. The scouts reported that humans lived in huge cities made of concrete and metal. They had billions of people on their world. "Admiral Zethka decided it would be a simple mission," Veltar explained. "Standard procedure for primitive worlds. We would arrive with a small fleet, show them our power, demand their surrender. If they refused, we would bomb their cities until they gave up." But the humans surprised them from the very beginning. When the hegemony fleet arrived at the edge of their solar system, they found human ships waiting for them. Not many ships, but they were there. They were spread out in a defensive formation around their home world. "A human female named Dr. Hyeon Kim contacted us first," Veltar said. "She spoke through radio waves, very primitive communication. She said she wanted to talk about peace. She offered to meet with us to discuss terms." Admiral Zethka had been amused by this. A primitive creature wanting to negotiate with the mighty hegemony. It was like an insect trying to bargain with a giant. But Zethka decided to humor them. She thought it would be entertaining. "We told Dr. Kim that her species could surrender immediately or face destruction," Veltar continued. "We gave them 1 day to decide. We expected them to give up right away. Instead, Captain Woo-Jin Park sent us a message." Veltar remembered that message clearly. The human male had appeared on their screens wearing a simple blue uniform. His face was calm but determined. He spoke in clear, precise words. "Captain Park told us that humans would defend their world," Veltar said. "He said they knew they were outmatched, but they would not surrender. They would fight for their families and their freedom." The Kethmoran officers had laughed at this. How could these primitives think they could fight the hegemony? Their weapons were toys compared to alien technology. Their ships were slow and clumsy. They had no chance at all. "We decided to make an example of them," Veltar admitted. "Admiral Zethka ordered the fleet to destroy half their ships immediately. We thought the rest would surrender when they saw what our weapons could do. But the humans did something unexpected. Instead of forming up for battle like normal military forces, they scattered. Their ships spread out across their solar system. Some hid behind planets. Others moved toward the asteroid belt. A few stayed near their home world. Their tactics made no sense to us," Veltar said. "In proper naval combat, fleets form lines and exchange fire until one side retreats or is destroyed. But the humans refused to fight like civilized beings. They acted more like space pirates." Dr. Hyeon Kim continued to send messages during this time. She begged the hegemony to reconsider. She offered to share human knowledge and technology. She promised that humans could be valuable allies if treated with respect. We ignored her pleas, Veltar said quietly. We thought she was weak and desperate. We did not understand that she was buying time for her people to prepare. Captain. Woojin Park used that time well. His ships began moving in patterns that confused the hegemony sensors. They used gravity from planets to change direction without using their engines. They hid in the shadows of moons and asteroids. They split into smaller groups and regrouped in different locations. We had never seen tactics like this, Veltar explained. Our combat doctrine assumed that enemies would face us directly. We trained to fight other advanced species with similar technology and strategies. We did not know how to fight an enemy that refused to follow the rules. The first real shock came when the hegemony tried to establish orbital control around Earth. As their ships moved closer to the human world, strange things began happening. Ships that had been hiding suddenly appeared and fired crude missiles. Then they disappeared again before the hegemony could respond. Their weapons could not penetrate our shields, Veltar said. But they kept attacking anyway. Wave after wave of small ships would strike and retreat. It was annoying at first. Then it became concerning. The human ships seemed to be everywhere at once. They would attack supply convoys heading to the hegemony fleet. They would sabotage communication relays. They would ram damaged ships into hegemony vessels and explode. We realized we were not fighting a normal military force, Veltar concluded. We were fighting an entire species that had decided to resist. Every human seemed willing to die for their world. We had never encountered anything like it before. The courtroom was silent as Veltar finished the first part of his testimony. The alien judges looked disturbed. They began to understand that this war had been different from anything the galaxy had seen before. That was just the beginning, Veltar said softly. The humans taught us that being primitive did not mean being weak. They showed us that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who has nothing left to lose. Veltar took a deep breath before continuing his testimony. The memory of the first real battle still haunted him. It was the day everything changed. The first major engagement happened near the planet they call Neptune, Veltar said. Admiral, Zethka brought 12 of our best warships. We faced 30 human vessels. We should have won easily. The hegemony ships were massive and beautiful. Each one was 3 times larger than the biggest human ship. Their hulls gleamed with energy shields. Plasma cannons lined their sides like rows of deadly teeth. Advanced computers controlled every system with perfect precision. The human fleet looked pathetic in comparison. Captain Woojin Park commanded ships that appeared to be mining vessels and cargo haulers. They had been modified with crude weapons and armor plates. Some still had corporate logos painted on their sides. We thought it would be over in minutes, Veltar admitted. Our weapons had much longer range than theirs. Our shields could stop anything they could throw at us. Our ships were faster and more maneuverable. Admiral Zethka opened fire first. Bright beams of plasma shot across space toward the human fleet. The energy weapons were designed to punch through the strongest, armor and vaporize enemy ships instantly. But something strange happened. The human ships began moving in ways that defied logic. Instead of trying to dodge the plasma beams directly, they used their chemical thrusters to spin and tumble through space. The movements looked chaotic and uncontrolled. We thought their ships were damaged, Veltar explained. No sane pilot would fly like that. But then we realized it was intentional. They were using the gravity of nearby moons to change direction. They were making themselves impossible to target accurately. Captain Woojin Park's flagship suddenly accelerated toward Neptune. It used the planet's gravity to slingshot around at incredible speed. Other human ships followed the same path. They were moving so fast and unpredictably that the hegemony targeting computers could not lock on to them. Lieutenant Minho Lee commanded a squadron of converted mining ships. These vessels carried no traditional weapons at all. Instead, they deployed clouds of industrial equipment. Cutting lasers, demolition charges, and metal debris filled the space around the hegemony fleet. We had never seen anything like it, Veltar said. Our shields were designed to stop energy beams and solid projectiles, but they could not handle thousands of small objects hitting them at the same time. The debris overloaded our defensive systems. Engineer Sujin Choi had done something even more clever. She had taken electromagnetic pulse devices from human factories and mounted them on small, fast ships. These crude weapons sent out waves of electrical interference. The Kethmaran ships relied on sophisticated computer systems for everything: navigation, weapons, life support, communication, all controlled by advanced artificial intelligence. The human EMP weapons were primitive, but they created interference patterns that the alien computers could not understand or filter out. Our most advanced ship became completely blind, Veltar recalled. The computers could not tell the difference between real targets and false signals. The weapon systems started firing at empty space. The navigation system thought we were spinning when we were flying straight. While the hegemony fleet struggled with malfunctioning systems, the human ships closed in for attack. They did not use energy weapons or guided missiles. Instead, they rammed explosive charges directly into alien hulls. Some human pilots deliberately crashed their ships into hegemony vessels. They were willing to die to damage us, Veltar said with amazement still in his voice. We could not understand this. Kethmaran warriors value their lives. We retreat when the situation becomes hopeless, but humans seem to become more dangerous when they were losing. Captain Woojin Park's tactical genius became clear during the battle. While his ships appeared to be attacking randomly, they were actually following a careful plan. Each strike weakened a specific system on the hegemony ships. Communications first, then sensors, then weapons. The human ships worked together like a pack of predators. When one hegemony vessel lost its shields, 3 human ships would immediately attack it from different directions. When alien weapons targeted one human ship, 2 others would appear and strike the alien ship's weak points. We lost 2 ships completely, Veltar admitted. 3 more were so badly damaged they had to retreat. The humans lost 9 ships, but they had accomplished something impossible. They had made us afraid. The battle ended when Admiral Zethka ordered a tactical withdrawal. The hegemony fleet regrouped at the edge of the solar system to assess the damage and plan their next move. The human ships did not pursue them. Instead, they began rescuing survivors from damaged vessels on both sides. Dr. Haeon Kim personally supervised the rescue of our wounded, Veltar said. She sent medical teams in small shuttles to collect injured Kethmaran soldiers from destroyed ships. She treated our people with the same care she gave to human casualties. This act of mercy confused the hegemony commanders even more than the strange battle tactics. In their experience, primitive species either surrendered quickly or fought with mindless savagery until they were exterminated. Humans did neither. They fought intelligently and fiercely, but they also showed compassion for their enemies. Engineer Sujin Choi sent us technical specifications for repairing our damaged ships, Veltar continued. She included detailed instructions in our own language. She said that warriors should not die from equipment failure after a battle was over. Admiral Zethka was furious about the unexpected defeat. She sent angry messages to Hegemony High Command, demanding reinforcements. She insisted that the humans had used some kind of unknown technology or received help from another advanced species. But tactical analyst Morden reviewed the battle recordings carefully. He reached a disturbing conclusion. The humans had not used any secret weapons or alien allies. They had simply used their primitive technology in ways that no one had ever thought possible. Morden showed us something terrifying, Veltar said. He demonstrated that human tactics could work against any enemy, not just us. Their methods did not depend on having better weapons or technology. They depended on thinking differently. The analyst's report was even more troubling. He estimated that the human defenders were improving rapidly. Each battle taught them more about hegemony technology and tactics. Meanwhile, the aliens were learning very little about how to fight humans effectively. We requested 50 more ships from High Command, Veltar said. We told them this would be a longer campaign than originally planned. We thought superior numbers would solve the problem, but Captain Wu Jin Park was already preparing for the next phase of the war. Human ships began appearing throughout the solar system in places where no ships should have been able to hide. They had somehow established bases inside asteroids and on the dark sides of moons. Lieutenant Minho Lee's special forces had been busy during the aftermath of the first battle. They had boarded some of the damaged hegemony ships and stolen equipment, not weapons or computers. Those were too complex for humans to use. Instead, they took raw materials and simple components. We did not understand what they wanted with basic metal alloys and power cells, Veltar said. Only later did we learn that engineer Sujin Choi was studying our technology, not to copy it, but to understand how it worked. She was learning to build better human weapons. The first engagement had ended with a tactical victory for the humans, but Veltar knew it was just the beginning. The real war was about to start, and the hegemony had seriously underestimated their enemy. We thought the first battle was a fluke, Veltar concluded. We believed that human luck would run out when faced with overwhelming force. We were wrong about that too. Veltar's voice grew quieter as he described the siege of Mars. It was the longest and most brutal part of the war. It was also where the hegemony learned just how stubborn humans could be. We brought 50 ships to blockade the Red Planet, Veltar said. Mars was humanity's forward military base. We controlled all the space around it. No supply ships could get through. We thought we would starve them out in a few weeks. Admiral Zethka was confident about this strategy. Siege warfare was a Kethmaran specialty. They had used blockades to force surrender on dozens of worlds, cut off food and supplies, wait for the enemy to give up. It was simple and effective. Mars had about 2 million human colonists. They lived in underground cities and surface domes. The planet could not grow enough food to feed everyone. Water had to be recycled constantly. The atmosphere was too thin to breathe without special equipment. By our calculations, they would run out of food in 30 days, Veltar explained. Without supply ships from Earth, the colony would collapse. The humans would have to surrender or watch their people die slowly. But Admiral Jiwon Nam was in charge of the Mars defense. She had been preparing for a siege long before the hegemony arrived. Her people had been digging deeper tunnels and storing emergency supplies. They had also been working on something the aliens did not expect. Dr. Haeon Kim had been studying Martian soil and atmosphere for months. She discovered that humans could grow food in underground farms using local materials. The red dirt contained minerals that plants needed. The thin atmosphere could be processed to provide carbon dioxide for growing crops. We monitored their communications for weeks, Veltar said. We expected to hear complaints about hunger and shortages. Instead, we heard reports about expanded food production and improved recycling systems. It made no sense. The humans had turned the entire planet into a closed-loop life support system. They recycled water with incredible efficiency. Waste products were processed into fertilizer. Even human breath was captured and processed to extract useful gases. Captain Wu Jin Park had been busy during the early weeks of the siege. While the hegemony fleet watched Mars, human ships had been moving throughout the solar system. They used small, stealthy vessels that were hard to detect on long-range sensors. We did not realize they were building a network of hidden bases, Veltar admitted. They had hollowed out asteroids and turned them into supply depots. They had hidden weapons and fuel on the dark sides of moons. They had even built secret shipyards inside dead comets. The first sign of trouble came after 6 weeks of siege. A hegemony supply convoy was attacked near Jupiter. 3 alien transport ships were destroyed by human raiders who appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. Lieutenant Minho Lee was leading these commando operations. His teams used captured Kethmaran equipment to modify their own ships. They could not copy alien technology exactly, but they found ways to make it work with human systems. His forces infiltrated our ships using nothing but spacesuits and cutting tools, Veltar said with amazement. They would approach disabled vessels and cut their way inside. Then they would sabotage critical systems and escape before we could respond. The human commandos were incredibly tough. They could survive in open space much longer than any Kethmoran warrior. They wore primitive suits that provided basic life support, but they seemed comfortable in the harsh environment of space. Engineer Sujin Choi had designed special equipment for these operations. Simple magnetic boots that let humans walk on ship hulls, cutting torches that could slice through alien armor, portable computer systems that could hack into Kethmoran electronics. We started losing ships even though no human fleet was nearby, Veltar continued. Our vessels would suddenly lose power or life support. Communication arrays would stop working. Weapon systems would malfunction. It was like fighting ghosts. The siege of Mars continued for months, but the hegemony was not winning. Human morale remained high despite the blockade. They sent regular messages to other human colonies, reporting successful defense and asking for patience. Dr. Haeyeon Kim had established contact with other species in the galaxy. She was learning about civilizations that the hegemony had conquered or threatened. She offered to share human defensive strategies with anyone who wanted to resist alien domination. We intercepted some of these communications, Veltar said. Dr. Kim was teaching other species how to fight us. She was spreading human tactics across dozens of worlds. We realized we might face rebellions everywhere. Admiral Jiwon Nam coordinated the defense with incredible skill. She managed resources so efficiently that the Mars colony actually became more self-sufficient during the siege than it had been before the war started. Food production increased, water recycling improved, energy systems became more reliable. Captain, Woojin Park's hidden fleet kept growing stronger. Every successful raid brought back captured equipment and intelligence. Human engineers studied everything they could get their hands on. They learned how Kethmoran ships worked and how to damage them effectively. After 4 months, we were spending more resources maintaining the siege than we were costing the humans, Veltar admitted. Our ships needed constant repairs because of sabotage. Our supply lines were under constant attack. Our crews were exhausted and demoralized. The turning point came during the 7th month of the siege. Lieutenant Minho Lee's commandos managed to infiltrate and capture an entire hegemony cruiser. They did not destroy it. They took it intact and flew it away. We lost a ship that contained our most advanced technology, Veltar said. The humans now had access to our weapons, our computers, our life support systems. They could study everything and learn how to build better defenses. Engineer Sujin Choi led the team that examined the captured cruiser. Within weeks, she had figured out how Kethmoran energy shields worked. She could not build identical systems with human technology, but she found ways to disrupt them effectively. The humans began deploying new weapons that could overload alien shields. They were still primitive compared to hegemony technology, but they worked. For the first time in the war, human weapons could damage Kethmoran ships directly. Admiral Zethka finally admitted that the siege was failing. Veltar continued. We had lost 12 ships to human raiders. The Mars colony was stronger than ever. Our own forces were weakened and spread too thin to maintain the blockade effectively. Dr. Haeyeon Kim sent one final message to the hegemony fleet before they withdrew. She thanked them for teaching humans about advanced technology. She said, the siege had made her people stronger and more united. She invited them to try peaceful contact again in the future. We retreated after 8 months, Veltar concluded. It was the longest siege in hegemony history, and we had lost. Not just the battle, but something more important. We had lost the confidence that we were superior to these humans. The siege of Mars changed everything. Human defenders had proven they could not be starved into submission. Their raiders had shown they could strike anywhere in the solar system. Their scientists had demonstrated they could learn and adapt faster than anyone expected. When we returned to our bases, High Command was furious, Veltar said. They could not understand how primitives had defeated our most advanced fleet. They decided to send an even larger force to end the war quickly. But Admiral Jiwon Nam was already planning humanity's next move. The siege had given her people time to prepare for a counterattack. Captain Woojin Park's hidden fleet was ready to take the war beyond Earth's solar system. The humans were about to become the hunters instead of the hunted. "We thought the siege had been a setback," Veltar said quietly. "We did not realize it had been a trap. The humans had used our own aggression to teach themselves how to fight us. Soon they would be coming for us." Veltar's mandibles trembled as he began describing humanity's first offensive operations. The memory still filled him with a mixture of terror and admiration that he could barely understand. 8 months after the siege of Mars ended, human ships appeared in the Kepler system, Veltar said. "We had colonies there, mining stations and research facilities. We thought they were safe because they were 40 light years from Earth. Admiral Jiwon Nam had been planning this attack during the entire siege. While the hegemony focused on blockading Mars, she had been building a secret fleet capable of interstellar travel. The ships looked like they were held together with spare parts and hope. Their vessels should not have been able to make the journey," Veltar explained. "The human ships used crude fusion reactors and primitive navigation systems. By our calculations, half of them should have been destroyed during the faster-than-light jump. But engineer Sujin Choi had developed human FTL travel by taking risks that no sane engineer would consider. Instead of the careful gravitational calculations that Kethmaran ships used, humans simply powered through space-time using massive energy expenditures. The human ships arrived in the Kepler system already damaged from their journey. Hull plates were cracked. Power systems were overloaded. Some vessels were venting atmosphere from multiple breaches. Any normal military force would have retreated immediately for repairs. "Instead, they attacked immediately," Veltar said with amazement. "They used mining equipment to patch their ships during combat. They jury-rigged weapon systems while under fire. They turned their own damage into a tactical advantage. Captain Woojin Park commanded the assault from a converted cargo hauler that had been modified beyond recognition. The ship bristled with weapons taken from captured hegemony vessels. Human engineers had combined alien technology with their own systems in ways that should not have worked. The Kethmaran garrison at Kepler had 12 ships and thought they were safe. The system was heavily defended with orbital platforms and automated weapons. No enemy had ever successfully attacked a hegemony inner system before. The humans came at us from directions we thought were impossible, Veltar continued. They used the gravity wells of planets to accelerate beyond normal speeds. They hid behind asteroid fields until the last moment. They attacked from above, and below the plane of the system where our sensors were weakest. Lieutenant Minho Lee's special forces had become something unprecedented during the months of preparation. They were humans who could operate captured alien technology better than its original creators. They wore modified Kethmaran environmental suits that enhanced rather than just sustained human physiology. "His commandos boarded our ships during active combat," Veltar said. "They would use small craft to attach themselves to our hulls then, cut their way inside while plasma beams were firing all around them. They fought in zero gravity and vacuum like they had been born in space. Dr. Haeon Kim had been busy during the months before the attack. She had made contact with other species in the Kepler system who were oppressed by hegemony rule. Local inhabitants provided intelligence about defensive positions and supply routes. The humans did not just attack the Kethmaran forces, they liberated the entire system. Slave camps were broken open. Forced labor operations were shut down. Species that had been under alien control for generations suddenly found themselves free. We faced not just human ships, but a full rebellion, Veltar admitted. Local species used their knowledge of our systems against us. They sabotaged power, plants and communication networks. They provided safe harbor for human raiders. Engineer Sujin Choi had taught other species how to modify their own technology using captured hegemony equipment. Mining robots became weapons platforms. Cargo haulers became troop transports. Communication arrays became jamming systems. The battle for Kepler lasted only 6 hours, but it changed the entire war. The hegemony lost not just ships and equipment, but something more valuable, the belief that their inner systems were safe from attack. Captain Woojin Park sent a message. "To all hegemony forces after the battle," Veltar continued. He said that humans would attack any system where species were held against their will. He offered safe passage to any Kethmoran forces who wanted to withdraw peacefully. Some alien commanders took the offer. They abandoned their positions and retreated to core hegemony space. But others were angry about the humiliating defeat. They demanded massive reinforcements to crush the human threat once and for all. Admiral Jiwon Nam did not wait for the hegemony to respond. Human fleets began appearing throughout the outer territories. They struck quickly and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Each attack freed more oppressed species and captured more advanced technology. "We called for help from every available ship," Veltar said. "But the humans seemed to know where our forces were at all times. They avoided our main fleets and attacked only isolated garrisons. They chose their battles carefully. Dr. Hyeon Kim had built an intelligence network that spanned dozens of star systems. Former slaves and oppressed populations provided information about hegemony movements. The humans knew where to strike for maximum effect with minimum risk. Lieutenant Minho Lee's operations became legendary among both human and alien forces. His teams could infiltrate any installation and accomplish impossible missions. They rescued prisoners from maximum security facilities. They destroyed weapons factories without harming civilian workers. His commandos captured Admiral Vexathol during a raid on the Vega system, Veltar said quietly. They took one of our most experienced commanders prisoner and extracted detailed information about our defensive plans. Engineer Sujin Choi used this intelligence to develop new weapons specifically designed to counter Kethmoran technology. Human ships began appearing with hybrid systems that combined the best features of multiple species technologies. The captured Admiral Vexthul was treated well by his human captors. Dr. Haeon Kim personally ensured he received proper medical care and respectful treatment. She even arranged for him to communicate with his family to assure them he was safe. "This confused us more than anything else," Veltar admitted. "We expected torture and interrogation. Instead, the humans treated Vexthul as an honored guest. They asked him questions about Kethmoran culture and history, not military secrets." Captain Woojin Park visited the captured admiral regularly. They discussed philosophy and military strategy like old colleagues. The human commander seemed genuinely interested in understanding the Kethmoran perspective on war and conquest. Vexthul reported that the humans were not driven by hatred or revenge, Veltar continued. They fought for their freedom and the freedom of others. They showed no desire to dominate or enslave their enemies. This made them even more dangerous. To us, Admiral Jiwon Nam's strategy was working perfectly. Each successful attack brought more allies to the human cause. More species joined the rebellion against hegemony rule. More systems declared independence and offered support to human forces. Within 6 months, we had lost control of 20 star systems, Veltar said. Not just to human attacks, but to widespread rebellion. Our empire was collapsing from within as well as being attacked from without. The humans had demonstrated something that terrified the hegemony leadership. They had proven that the alien empire could be defeated by determined resistance. They had shown that primitive technology could overcome advanced weapons through superior tactics and unbreakable will. High Command finally realized they were facing an existential threat, Veltar concluded. This was not just a war against one primitive species. It was a war against the idea that freedom was more powerful than tyranny. Engineer Sujin Choi had one more surprise for the hegemony forces. She had been studying captured alien technology for months, and she had made a breakthrough that would change everything. The humans were about to achieve something that Kethmoran scientists claimed was impossible. We received reports that human ships were becoming faster and more maneuverable, Veltar said. At first, we thought it was improved tactics, but our analysts realized something terrifying. The humans had not just learned to use our technology, they had improved it. The counterattack was about to begin in earnest, and the hegemony was no longer fighting primitive savages. They were fighting an enemy that was becoming more advanced with every battle. Veltar paused for a long moment before continuing. The memory of what came next still amazed him. It was the moment when everything the hegemony believed about technology and warfare proved to be wrong. Dr. Haeon Kim's research team achieved the impossible, Veltar said finally. They took our energy shield technology and made it better. In 6 months, they accomplished what our scientists claimed could not be done in 1,000 years. The breakthrough had not come from copying Kethmoran technology directly. Instead, the humans had studied the basic principles behind alien energy shields and found ways to improve them using their own understanding of physics and engineering. Engineer Sujin Choi led the team that developed hybrid shield systems. They combined Kethmoran energy projection with human redundancy and adaptability. The result was defensive technology that could adjust to different types of attacks in real time. Our shields were designed to stop specific types of weapons, Veltar explained. Energy beams, kinetic projectiles, plasma bursts. But they could not adapt when faced with unknown attack methods. Human shields were different. They learned from each impact and became stronger. Captain Woo Jin Park's new fleet appeared at the Battle of Proxima Station equipped with these revolutionary defensive systems. The ships still looked crude compared to Kethmoran vessels, but their capabilities had improved dramatically. The human vessels could reconfigure themselves during combat. Armor plates moved to protect damaged sections. Weapon systems could be quickly modified to counter specific threats. Engine configurations changed to optimize speed or maneuverability as needed. We brought our most powerful fleet to Proxima Station, Veltar continued. 75 ships, including our newest dreadnoughts. We thought superior numbers and firepower would finally end the human threat. Admiral Zethka commanded the hegemony force personally. She was determined to prove that Kethmoran technology was still superior to anything the humans could create. The station was a major supply depot that controlled 3 important trade routes. Admiral Jiwon Nam brought only 30 human ships to the battle. But each vessel was now equipped with advanced hybrid technology that combined the best features of multiple alien species. The humans had learned from every enemy they had faced. The battle began normally, Veltar said. We formed our standard attack formation and opened fire with plasma cannons. We expected to overwhelm their shields through concentrated firepower. But the human shields did something no Kethmoran engineer thought possible. Instead of simply absorbing or deflecting the energy beams, they analyzed the attack patterns and began adapting countermeasures in real time. Our first volley was partially effective, Veltar continued. The second volley was less effective. By the third volley, their shields were almost completely immune to our weapons. They had learned to defend against our most powerful attacks. Captain Woo Jin Park's tactical abilities had also evolved during the months of warfare. He no longer commanded ships that simply reacted to enemy attacks. His fleet could anticipate hegemony movements and counter them before they were completed. The human. Ships began moving in 3-dimensional formations that seemed to violate the laws of physics. They used gravitational fields and magnetic forces to change direction without using their engines. They appeared to dance through space like living creatures. Admiral Jiwon Nam had studied every battle we had ever fought, Veltar explained. She knew our tactics better than some of our own commanders. She could predict our moves and position her ships to counter them perfectly. Lieutenant Minho Lee's special forces had evolved into something unprecedented. They no longer needed to board enemy ships to disable them. They could hack into Kethmaran computer systems remotely using captured alien technology combined with human programming methods. Our ships began turning against each other, Veltar said with amazement. Lieutenant Lee's hackers took control of our weapons and navigation systems. We found ourselves firing on our own vessels while human ships remained untouched. Engineer Sujin Choi had developed weapons that combined energy projection with kinetic impact in ways that bypassed traditional defenses. The human weapons could change their attack method in mid-flight, adapting to whatever defensive measures they encountered. Dr. Haeon Kim coordinated with allied species throughout the battle. Former hegemony slaves provided intelligence about weak points in alien ship designs. Free worlds contributed their own vessels to support the human attack. We were not just fighting humans anymore, Veltar admitted. We were fighting a coalition of dozens of species, all coordinated by human leadership and equipped with hybrid technology that surpassed our own. The tide of battle turned completely when human ships began demonstrating impossible maneuvers. They could stop instantly without deceleration. They could change direction at 90-degree angles while maintaining full speed. They could accelerate beyond what their engines should have been capable of. Engineer Sujin Choi had found ways to manipulate gravitational fields using modified Kethmaran technology, Veltar explained. Human ships could create their own artificial gravity wells to change direction or accelerate. They were no longer bound by normal physics. Admiral Zethka ordered a retreat when half the hegemony fleet had been destroyed or disabled. But the human ships pursued the fleeing aliens with relentless efficiency. They seemed to know exactly where each Kethmaran vessel would try to escape. Captain Woojin Park's forces surrounded our retreat route, Veltar continued. They had anticipated our withdrawal and positioned ships to intercept us. We were trapped in a system where we should have had complete control. The final phase of the battle was the most humiliating for the hegemony forces. Human ships disabled alien vessels without destroying them. They captured crews alive and provided medical treatment for the wounded. They followed rules of warfare that the Kethmaran had forgotten. I was captured when my ship was boarded by Lieutenant Minho Lee personally, Veltar said quietly. He could have killed me easily, but instead he offered medical assistance for my injuries. He treated me with respect, even though I was his enemy. Dr. Haeon Kim supervised the processing of prisoners after the battle. She ensured that all captured Kethmaran personnel received proper care according to their physiological needs. She arranged for them to contact their families to report that they were safe. She asked me questions about our culture and history, Veltar continued, not to extract military secrets, but because she was genuinely curious about our people. She wanted to understand why we had chosen conquest over cooperation. Engineer Sujin Choi showed Veltar some of the hybrid technologies that had defeated the hegemony fleet. She explained how human engineering principles had been combined with alien knowledge to create something entirely new. She was not seeking to humiliate us, Veltar said. She was eager to share knowledge and discuss the possibilities for future collaboration. She spoke of technology that could benefit all species if developed peacefully. Admiral Jiwon Nam's final conversation with captured hegemony officers revealed the ultimate truth about human motivations. They had not fought to conquer the Kethmaran Empire, but to secure freedom for themselves and others. Admiral Nam offered us a choice, Veltar explained. We could continue the war and face inevitable defeat, or we could negotiate a peace treaty that would benefit both species. She spoke of cooperation rather than domination. The Battle of Proxima Station ended with the complete destruction of the hegemony's core fleet. More importantly, it demonstrated that human technology had surpassed alien capabilities in fundamental ways. The primitives had become the advanced civilization. We had called them primitive because we measured advancement by our own standards, Veltar concluded. We valued efficiency, logic, and technological superiority. Humans valued adaptability, creativity, and something we had no word for, hope. Captain Woojin Park sent a message to all remaining hegemony forces after the battle. He offered safe passage to any aliens who wanted to withdraw from conquered territories. He promised fair treatment for prisoners and respect for those who chose peace over continued warfare. The war was over, Veltar said simply. Not because one side had been destroyed, but because one side had proven that cooperation was more powerful than conquest. The humans had not just defeated us, they had shown us a better way to live. Veltar's voice became softer as he described his time as a prisoner of the humans. It was here that he truly learned what these strange creatures were really like beneath their fierce exterior. I expected execution or torture, Veltar said, honestly. That is what the hegemony would have done with captured enemies. Instead, Dr. Hyeon Kim personally oversaw my medical care. She treated my injuries with the same dedication she showed to wounded humans. The human medical facility was unlike anything Veltar had ever seen. Kethmoran military hospitals were efficient, but cold. Patients were healed quickly and returned to duty. The human facility felt more like a place where people came to rest and recover. Dr. Kim visited Veltar every day during his recovery. She did not interrogate him about military secrets or demand information about hegemony defenses. Instead, she asked questions about Kethmoran biology, culture, and history. She wanted to understand how our species thought and lived, Veltar explained. Not to find weaknesses to exploit, but out of genuine curiosity. She had studied our language and customs. She knew more about Kethmoran art and literature than many of our own people. Captain Woo Jin Park also visited regularly. The human commander discussed military strategy and philosophy with his former enemy like they were old colleagues. He showed Veltar tactical analyses of battles they had fought against each other. Captain Park acknowledged my skills as a commander, Veltar said, with amazement. He pointed out moves I had made that impressed him. He asked for my opinion on human tactics and listened carefully to my answers. He treated me as an equal, not a defeated enemy. Engineer Sujin Choi was the most enthusiastic visitor. She spent hours explaining how human technology worked and how it had been combined with Kethmoran systems. She was not trying to show off her superiority. She was genuinely excited about the possibilities. She showed me hybrid engines that combined our energy efficiency with human redundancy, Veltar continued. She explained shield systems that adapted in real time to different threats. She spoke of weapons that could be reconfigured during combat to counter specific defenses. But Choi was most excited about peaceful applications of the hybrid technology. She described terraforming systems that could make barren worlds habitable, medical devices that could treat injuries in any species, communication networks that could connect civilizations across the galaxy. She was not interested in building better weapons, Veltar said. She wanted to create technology that would help people live better lives. She spoke of cooperation between species as if it was the most natural thing in the universe. Lieutenant Minho Lee visited Veltar several times during his recovery. The human Special Forces commander had captured dozens of Kethmoran prisoners during the war, but he showed no signs of hatred or anger toward his former enemies. Lieutenant Lee spoke of war as a necessary evil, not a way of life, Veltar explained. He said that fighting was sometimes required to protect freedom, but the goal should always be to achieve peace. He looked forward to the end of conflict with the same intensity he had brought to combat. The human prisoner facility housed Kethmoran, soldiers, officers, and civilians who had been captured during various battles. All were treated according to their specific physiological needs. Medical care was provided without discrimination. Families were allowed to communicate with captured relatives. We were not just prisoners, Veltar said. We were guests being prepared for eventual return to our own people. The humans made it clear that they had no interest in keeping us permanently or using us for forced labor. Dr. Kim arranged for Kethmoran prisoners to attend human cultural events and educational programs. She wanted them to understand human society and values. She hoped that knowledge would lead to better relations between the species in the future. I attended human music performances and art exhibitions, Veltar continued. I learned about their history and philosophy. I began to understand that their strength in war came from their commitment to protecting what they valued in peace. Captain Park included Veltar in strategic planning discussions about the post-war period. The human commander was working on proposals for peaceful coexistence between species. He wanted input from former enemies about how to prevent future conflicts. He asked me what conditions would be necessary for the hegemony to accept a lasting peace, Veltar said. He listened to my suggestions about territorial boundaries and trade agreements. He treated my opinions as valuable contributions to the planning process. Engineer Choi invited Veltar to tour human research facilities where hybrid technologies were being developed. She explained how knowledge gained from captured Keth-Moran equipment was being used to create new innovations that could benefit both species. She offered to share this technology freely with the hegemony, Veltar continued. She said that scientific knowledge belonged to all intelligent species. She believed that cooperation in research would lead to discoveries that no single civilization could achieve alone. Admiral Jiwon Nam's final conversation with Veltar revealed the ultimate truth about human motivations. She explained that humans had never wanted to conquer the Keth-Moran Empire or enslave alien populations. Admiral Nam told me that humans had fought only to secure their freedom and the freedom of oppressed species, Veltar said. She offered the hegemony a choice between continued warfare and negotiated peace. She promised that humans would respect Keth-Moran territory if the aliens stopped conquering other worlds. The peace proposal was remarkably generous considering the human victory. The hegemony would be allowed to keep their core systems and maintain their government. In exchange, they would release all enslaved species and agree to peaceful relations with their neighbors. The humans demanded no tribute or reparations, Veltar explained. They wanted only two things: freedom for oppressed peoples and a promise that the hegemony would not start new wars of conquest. They offered to help us transition to a peaceful economy. Dr. Kim provided Veltar with detailed plans for converting military technology to civilian use. Weapons factories could be retooled to produce medical equipment. Warships could be modified for exploration and scientific research. Military personnel could be retrained for peaceful occupations. She had thought of everything, Veltar said with admiration. She understood that lasting peace required more than just ending the fighting. Former enemies needed to find new purposes and new ways to cooperate. Captain Park arranged for Veltar to be released as part of a prisoner exchange program. But before leaving, the human commander made a personal request. He asked Veltar to testify about the war when he returned to hegemony space. He wanted me to tell our people the truth about humans, Veltar continued. Not propaganda or military reports, but honest testimony about what I had experienced. He believed that understanding between species was the only way to prevent future wars. Engineer Choi gave Veltar copies of technical specifications for peaceful hybrid technologies. She asked him to share them with Keth-Moran scientists and engineers. She hoped that joint research projects might become the foundation for lasting cooperation. When I returned to hegemony space, I found a civilization ready for change, Veltar said. The war had exhausted our resources and shattered our confidence. Many of our people were ready to try a different approach to dealing with other species. Admiral Jiwon Nam had been right about the choice facing the hegemony. Continued war would lead to certain defeat and possible extinction. Negotiated peace offered the opportunity for a better future for both civilizations. I testified before our high command about everything I had seen and learned, Veltar concluded. I told them that humans were not primitive savages, but a highly advanced civilization with different values and priorities. I recommended accepting their peace proposal. The Galactic Council chamber was silent as Veltar finished his testimony. The assembled representatives from dozens of species had heard a story that challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare and diplomacy. We called them primitive because we measured advancement by our own standards. Veltar said in his final statement. We valued efficiency, logic, and technological superiority. Humans valued adaptability, creativity, and hope. They were never primitive, they were simply different. He paused and looked around the chamber at the various alien representatives. That difference saved them when our superiority failed us. It taught us that there are many ways to be advanced, and that true strength comes not from the ability to conquer others, but from the wisdom to live in peace with them. Veltar's recommendation to the Galactic Council was simple but revolutionary. New protocols for first contact should be based on human principles of understanding and cooperation rather than assumptions about technological or cultural hierarchy. The humans showed us that the most advanced civilization is not the one with the most powerful weapons, Veltar concluded. It is the one that can turn former enemies into allies and war into the foundation for lasting peace.